Morning, everyone. Welcome to the intermediate class, Los Angeles Chess Club. This morning, your teacher, National Master Ruben Ondangan. I would like to present to you a topic in how to convert an advantage in a chess game, right? Because most of the time, we have a one position. Problem is, achieving a one position is one thing, finishing it off is another, right? And the hardest part in a chess game is how to win a one game, correct? It seems like it's easy to ruin everything when you're doing well. You just mess it up. And factors are time pressure, right? You just get distracted, right? And so many other reasons. This game, because today, as actually some of my friends are playing in the National Open in Las Vegas. So I would like to present a game from June 17 of 2012 in the National Open. And this is my 7th place finish, probably one of the last big tournament that I ranked very high, but not enough money, but it's a good result. Nevertheless, game starts e4. My opponent, John Rosell, is now a national master. At the time, he is a super expert. He played g6.
Modern.
And this is the last round, by the way, of the National Open. And I would like to make my opponent think right there on the second move. I played knight c3. The normal move, of course, is d4. Played bishop g7. And so the good thing about the National Open, longer time control, it gives you enough time to switch your openings a little bit, right? You don't have to play every time the main line. You can move order your opponent. That's what we call it, right? Psychology plays a vital part in especially last rounds. f4, and I've cost my opponent some thinking time here. There's no d4 pawn. Sometimes the d4 becomes a target to that bishop on g7, by the way. And so I decided to play in an idea similar to plank attacks, right? Here, immediately early on, we have some sort of idea of playing f5, destroying the king side for black. So after f4, he played d6. My opponent is playing a dark square strategy based on bishop g7, d6, and maybe later on c5, creating a bind on the dark square. So knight f3, and common response here in this position, if your opponent does not occupy the center, you should. Okay, so he played c5. Now in this case, the full dominion of the dark square is on black's hand. He has enough counterplay. The position is about level or equal at this point. However, I have my two knights out, and white has the advantage of the first move. After c5, I played bishop c4. Now we have what we called the Grand Prix attack in the Sicilian defense. So what we see here is started with the modern defense with g6. We find ourselves in the Grand Prix attack, or the Sicilian defense variation. Okay, so bishop c4. He played knight c6. What can we say about black's strategy? So far, it's logical. Okay, he continued his erecting the dark square strategy. Now, all these three, 1, 2, 3, and the knight all control the dark squares. So, very clear plan on black side. Castle. Okay, from here, black catches up with development with knight f6. The other line here is to play e6. Okay, if my opponent play e6 here, I will immediately blast the center open with f5. Okay, but unfortunately he played a much more superior move. I believe knight f6 is a developing move, and there is a trick of maybe knight takes e4 later on. So white played d3. Then he castled. So we can start evaluating the position at this point. We are now at the almost the end of the opening stage of the game. We're basically entering the middle game stage. So we have to take stock. What do we have and what does your opponent have? We start locating weaknesses. Unfortunately, we can't find any on black's camp. And black, on the other hand, will start locating weakness. The only thing I can see is my weak d4 square, which is all in black. Now, so most player will see, how is that a weakness? Well, it is a weakness because your opponent can occupy it and can control it, okay?
Question.
Good.
Your light squared bishop is outside your pawn check.
Very good.
So I would say, actually, it looks like both bishops are good bishops.
Yes. Here,
If you want to save that light square bishop, because knight to a5, he can
always remove it
right.
immediately.
Would you take a tempo and play a3 to save that bishop?
I know you will play a3 here because this is your line as well.
I like to save that bishop.
I've seen him play this a lot of times, but you see here, tempo are very vital. I said by chasing the bishop, he will actually remove one of his key dark square defender or controller of the dark square further to the side of the board just to gain tempo on the bishop. Now, let's see how it will work. We have to be quick here so that we won't give our opponent chance to attack that bishop. After castle, I immediately played the possibility of kingside attack here. The reason is my strength is the half open f file, the knight already ready to jump on g5, coupled with the bishop influencing the f7 square. So all this you put together, we need to add more artillery on that side of the board facing the king. So we bring our most strongest piece going h4 with the idea of knight g5 and creating mating threats there. So let's see if he will try to play knight, for example, a5 here. I will not invest a tempo on playing bishop b3. I allow the crippling of my pawn. If I have a double pawn, I have control of the d5 square, and I will have the other rook going to the d file. That's my plan. So I said you can waste a tempo attacking my bishop. I'm willing to let go of it and go on with other things. So here, instead of knight a5, he played, after a long think, e6. But you see here in this position, Mitch was right. Knight a5 was the best. Even the computer will say that it should be knight a5. But here, it gives me a target after e6. He tried to neutralize the bishop. However, suddenly after e6, guess what I played here? f5 immediately, not even thinking about the loss of a pawn. This is pure sacrifice, which if taken, it could cause a lot of problem in his king position. If he captures with the e, my bishop will be open once again. So this become a problem that caused my opponent a lot of thinking. Not to mention, the move, in order to become a good move or excellent, it needs to contain one or two idea. Here, it's more than two. The other idea of f5 is clearing the path of the bishop.
That's one.
With the added queen coming here, and you will see an irresistible attack for white. So about three ideas: blasting open, right? Clearing the bishop's diagonal, right? And this trying to open the bishop's other diagonal. So those are the idea. After f5, a counter play on the flank should be met by an attack on the center. Remember that. That's a golden rule. So if your opponent attacks on the flank, the best reaction is
Attack in the center.
attack in the center.
He played d5.
d5. Okay, very good. So he answered the question with another question. An attack versus a counter attack, right? So he doesn't wait for something to happen. He makes things happen as well. So you see now how very confusing the position suddenly on the board. It become very problematic for both sides how to continue here. And of course, after d5, bishop b3. Oops, bishop b3. Okay. Now he captured. He probably made a wrong capture. If you were black here, what should you play?
I would actually do g takes f.
If g takes f4, this problem of the queen g3 and bishop h6 shouldn't be, It could just cause a lot of
Cause a problem with king h8. Then
trouble, a little bit, for because there's always a knight h5 later on, correct? Right? Or you can play queen h4 and play bishop g5. See, this is very dangerous, by the way, softening the cover of the king. So it's not clear how far ahead can one see the resulting position, but by general rule is that if your opponent's king cover has been compromised,
it's easier to win.
there is a way for you to crash through. So these are one of those cases. The other one, and that's what I miss. What I miss here is the move the computer requires, c4. The idea is after b takes c4, he switches from attack here to attack to the other side, blocking the bishop. You have to remember this kind of idea. Very tricky, right? And something for you to learn today. It blocks the influence of the bishop. It becomes a pawn by itself. Very interesting try, but that's what the computers see. No human can see this kind of moves. Right? And so next time I said maybe f5 is not really good in this position after that computer move of c4. However, my opponent is human. He captured ef. He said this should be the lesser of two evil. Maybe so, lesser of two evil, but still it's evil. So knight takes d5. Knight takes. How do we recapture, class?
Well, you should probably take it with the bishop.
Take it with the bishop to keep the diagonal open. Bishop takes.
Would it have, what about push, instead of it push the pawn on you?
If I push the pawn, I lose a knight.
Oh,
I have to recapture that knight, or else I will be down a piece.
but then you would take his knight, because his knight was on f6, right?
It was here instead of
Yeah, I was looking at it too. e5, push e5.
e5.
I can't look at it too.
It's playable as well because this pawn will drop. But after, for example, knight g4, you will notice that this is under attack 3 times. 1, 2, 3. So after, for example, knight takes d5, and then he will recapture it, then we'll find ourselves in a deficit here. Knight takes 2, 4, 6, 7, 2, 4, 6. It's probably playable for white. However, the knight that moved from f6 doesn't give us an option to
Bishop g5.
bring queen h4. Bishop g5 is not good because of knight takes knight with check, and the bishop drops. Right?
Because of this. Gotcha.
And then the bishop drops. No lack of protection. So very tricky position. It requires a lot of accurate moves. So I might as well, after e takes e5, instead of e5, just capture it immediately. Leave that knight on f6. Hopefully it will stay there. But he captured as well. Bishop takes knight. He removed his double pawn. I think this is bad. The reason is he should have kept that pawn in there and allow white to capture later on so that he can develop the bishop. By capturing the pawn, he isolates my pawn to the e file. However, it gives me an open f file. That's what happened in the game. That could become dangerous. Now he found a way to attack the bishop. Now, of course, here a normal move probably is just to withdraw the bishop and defend c2.
Now bishop g5.
Right? Instead, you're right. After knight b4, we don't waste time. Bishop g5. We take advantage of the fact that black cannot play f6 because the knight is there. The bishop is there, controlling the f7 diagonal leading to the king. So after bishop g5, he played probably misunderstood the position, hoping that this pawn will be under attack because it's isolated. The best move here, according to the computer, is, for example, queen b6. with the idea of, for example, after bishop b3, there's c4 check, and we have a discovery and attack on the bishop at the same time. Very tricky, right? He's probably not satisfied with that move at that situation. He said, I want to keep my f7 under protection, not only with the rook, but also with the queen. So he was hoping knight takes, pawn takes, and the exchange of queen will give this bishop sole dominion of the diagonal dark square. So that's what he's aiming for. Now he expects me to withdraw the bishop to b3. Now what did I play in this position? Do we defend this? Now again, the rule is in chess game, before you play passive move, try to look for active. Before you defend, try to see if you can attack. Okay, so we don't have to have. You don't need to have a defensive thought process every time. You always have to go on for the attack. So a waste of time will be bishop b3, or maybe even c3.
Queen d2 looks pretty good.
Queen d2 is playable, and it creates a battery. At the same time, it protects the pawn.
What about c4?
c4, knight c2, and there's a fork. So the problem is the pork. We need the beans, pork and beans.
Yes. You're getting better than me.
Castle to c1, rook to c1,
Rook to d1.
rook to c1, rook to d1.
That bishop's going to take b2 also. So you got
Yeah, there's so many problems here.
So maybe queen c1.
Queen c1. Again, that so
Queen c1 does everything. It sets up the battery.
correct.
Protects b2 and c2. It stops the fork.
But the purpose of playing here, suddenly we have to go back to, it become this a waste of time. So I don't want to waste time going back to c1. So instead, I jettison both of this and willing to give them up and say I'll go with the attack, queen h4. Now you see the idea. The queen e8 was a mistake actually, because it rendered this rook trapped with bishop e7. All right. So that's easy to miss, because all this time we are wondering what's going to happen to my b2 and to c2. Right? Sacrifice them, let them go.
He's got to move the queen.
Right? So here, after bishop queen h4, what will happen, for example, if he play knight takes c2? What's going to happen here? Let's see. That's not the move played, but let's check this variation first. If knight takes c2, we have, this is under attack, we have this move, bishop e7. Okay? And after bishop e7, if we capture, knight takes a1, we have bishop takes f8. The problem is, how should black recapture?
Probably with the bishop.
If capture with the bishop, we have this devastating knight g5. 1, 2,
3.
and black can resign. Right? You see that suddenly? The unveiling of the attack on f7.
So he can't take the bishop.
Correct? So those were the traps I'm setting my opponent. Come on, capture the opponent c2, because this will be really over so quick. So if he capture with the king, it's still the same way. Can you stop this?
I'd just take h7 right away with me.
No, this one is better.
Oh, yeah.
Right? That's another one. And if he captures with the queen, it's the same thing. Again, the knight g5 will just be devastated. So it's getting from bad to worse, right? So you see now the trap I set on my opponent. Those who are liking to capture pawns, they pay dearly for it without looking deeper in the position.
The c8 bishop and the a8 rook.
We're
they
just
haven't moved.
paralyzed.
They haven't moved.
They haven't moved. They're immobilized. So this is the
You use
problem.
every single one of your pieces.
What is the rule here? Do not go on pawn hunting
During a mating attack.
during a storm. Okay. So Instead, he cannot capture c2. Okay. Since he cannot capture the c2 pawn because that's a poison pawn, what about he capture bishop takes b2? What's going to happen?
Your bishop now has gone to d7 already.
If bishop takes b2,
You have your rook, right?
rook a b1,
Yeah.
and where does the bishop go? Anywhere. For example, it goes back. Now we have bishop e7 once again. Right? For example, he captures, and we capture. Okay, black will lose the rook on f8, and we will be ahead in material. Plus, this knight g5 is coming back again to haunt f7 and h7 at the same time. So those two are poison pawns. It looks like they are ripe for the taking, but no, it's not. They are poison, both of them. It cannot be captured.
So could you call them decoys?
Uh,
There's decoys?
It's more like in the term an enticement or provocation to cause your opponent to
Sacrificial lamb.
sacrificial lambs is a good one. Or you're trying to jettison a pawn here. Okay, take it, but it cannot be captured. So he has to capture the knight. That's the only, the bishop with the knight. The pawn takes. So after now he removed my important bishop. He was able to play f6. So there's no funny knight g5 or knight e5 coming in. But what did we achieve in the position after when the smoke is clear? Let's see. We have a passed d pawn that could be our clincher in the game, correct?
So c4 have it protected.
So after g5 we have to protect the bishop. Where does the bishop go?
Maybe h6 and just trade it off.
Well, here after after f6 the bishop actually become bad. It's blocked by its own. So might as well keep the bishop alive. Bishop to d2. He played bishop f5 finally. Bishop have seen the light of day, attacking c4. Now, guess a move for white here. What should white play here?
No.
What about rook a
I wanted c4.
e1?
If c4,
Because if that's going to be, if your d pawn is your passive, you've got to start protecting.
yes, probably best. But you see, here I start becoming excited, and I thought I'm winning, and I followed Perry's advice, rook a e1, which is never listen to women. No, I'm just joking. No, no, no. But it looks very natural. I'm sorry, Perry. Remember Eve? Oh no. No, for here, rook a e1, what happened is it looks very natural. You try to develop a piece that has been not seeing action for a long time. Very natural. But after r a e1, he played queen d7, attacking the pawn. And now we played the Mitch move c4. Guess what I find myself into? If he played the immediate bishop d3, we suddenly find ourselves lacking coordination. We lose the coordination of our forces.
Well, the queen's guarding c4. Right?
Yeah, but we have to play rook f2, and the bishop suddenly become very strong on d3, right? And because we lack something on the back rank, ra e8, suddenly we have to capture. We have no choice. And after re, how will?
What about rook e3?
Yeah, but this time this is black white to move. We have to save this.
Well,
Correct. We have to play rook
You want to
8.
give up the exchange for a passer?
We start losing. The pieces suddenly become uncoordinated. So this will be a problem. However, my opponent played to make it look nicer for him. He played g5 first. Attack the queen, saying that the defender of the c4 will let go of the defense of that pawn because there's no place to go except I cannot go continuously defending this pawn. I can go h5 or I can go g3, which I did. And so after bishop d3, he starts standing up and then say, I'm just happy because this pawn will drop.
Well, just b3 then, and give
Well-
an exchange for your beautiful pawn chain.
Yeah, but I'm definitely in a long game that will probably a lost position. Right? So we have to rely on tactics. Find the
He's
tactics.
gonna bring in his other rook, right?
With white to move, what is a tactical solution here?
Tactical
Move the knight.
solution is knight to e5.
Very good. Knight e5. How many of you seen that? Give yourself 5 points for that. Quick, in a few seconds you saw that, right? Knight e5, save. White was able to save his skin from imminent death. We're supposed to lose this game. After which is force, fe, queen takes. Okay, now it's becoming better once again for white. Earlier we're almost lost. G5, queen g3, bishop d3. Now he played queen g4. Okay, here my opponent start pushing his swindle mode here because this is going to win for white. That's our trump. And he has to create some kind of imaginary attack just to upset the balance of the position. There is nothing in there. There's the check. He's trying to create his own pass pawn. We just nip it in the bud by bishop c3. Now we have this as a target. Correct? Bishop c3.
Rook takes rook check.
Well, instead of rook takes rook, he played rook f4, trying to double on trying to attack the c4. So we captured rook takes. How to recapture for black? He cannot capture with this pawn because this will drop. He cannot capture with this pawn because the exchange of the bishop will render black's king no covering. Okay?
He has to take.
So he has to take with
Queen.
the queen. However, that gives us an important tempo with rook f1. After rook f1, he went back queen g4. We attack the queen with h3. Play queen h4. I'm telling you, he's creating an imaginary illusion, an illusion. And white just simply have to be careful at this time, you know, how to convert an advantage is the title of the topic. So after queen h4,
Take the pawn on the rook on the
suggest a move.
Let's take a look. Suggest a move. How about d6?
Very good, Mitch. That is the best move in the position. However, I didn't see it. I should remember that. Push the pawn. Pass pawns must be pushed. Right? Pass pawns must be pushed. The simple threat is queen d5 check, snatching the b7.
Or take c5 too. I mean,
Right,
all
take
nice.
c5. Everything is ripe for the picking here. Right? Instead,
bishop.
I just want to get rid of this pesky queen on breathing in front of my king.
Bishop e1.
So I played, bishop is well placed there. I attack this pawn first with queen e2. He has to defend it with rook e8. Okay. I offer an exchange because this one should win. Queen f2 with the threat of
f7.
queen and f7 check.
Pick up the rook.
Right? He cannot allow the exchange of queen, otherwise he's just lost in the end game. He has to stay in the middle game. Black has to stay in the middle game here.
h5.
Queen h5. But then we have
Queen takes c5.
queen takes c5. And after queen takes c5, he start playing g4. It's resignable, good, but he start creating at this time possible draw.
It's desperado stuff.
A desperado. g4, h takes g4. Queen takes. And now finally d6. Okay, he wants to create a check, check, check. Remove the rook. But that rook f8 was another
Queen d5
blunder.
check. Or queen d5 check, the king can't really go to h8 because rook takes rook. And then you push the pawn. No, but
Queen C7.
That one wins. This Mitch line wins. Queen check, and then after king, rook takes, bishop takes, and then queen takes pawn check, and it will be mate. But this is simpler. Rook takes rook check. So that if king takes, we have d7 discover check. So he has to capture with the bishop. But now, finding out that queen after bishop takes f8, what's going to happen here?
could queen take e5?
Queen d5 check.
Oh, queen check
Yeah.
first. Okay.
Queen d5 check. That's it. It's over. Right? Because if king here, check. You cannot go queen here because queen e8 and it's over. Right? The danger suddenly shows up, and you don't really need to have another queen.
What's he doing?
Okay. Very good. Now, how many minutes we have? We have 30 minutes. I'll show you another game.